To start about the state legislature in the series of our constitution. Though a uniform pattern of government is prescribed for the states in the matter of the composition of the legislature, the constitution makes a distinction between the bigger and the smaller states. While the legislature of every state shall include the governor, and in some of the states it shall consist of two houses, namely the legislative assembly and the legislative council, while in the rest there shall be only one house, that is the legislative assembly. It has been inserted in the article 168 of our constitution. Owing to changes introduced since the inauguration of the constitution in accordance with the procedure laid down in article 169, the states having two houses in 2000 are Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh. Article 168. To these must be added Jammu and Kashmir, which has adopted a bicameral legislature by her own state constitution. It follows that in the remaining states, the legislature is unicameral, that is consisting of the legislative assembly only Article 168. But the above list is not permanent in the sense that the Constitution provides for the abolition of the second chamber, that is the Legislative Council, in a state where it exists, as well as for the creation of such a chamber in a state where there is none at present, by simple procedure which does not involve an amendment of the Constitution. The procedure prescribed is a resolution of the Legislative Assembly of the state concerned passed by the special majority, that is a majority of the total membership of the assembly not being less than 2/3 of the member actually present and voting, followed by an act of parliament, article 169. This apparently extraordinary provisions was made for the state while there was none corresponding to it for the union legislature. In order to meet the criticism at the time of the making of the constitution that some of our states, being of poorer resources, could ill afford to have the extravagance of two chambers, this device was accordingly prescribed to enable each state to have a second chamber, or not according to its own wishes. It is interesting to note that, taking advantage of this provision, the states of Andhra Pradesh in 1957 created a legislative council, leading to the enactment of Legislative Council Act 1957 by Parliament. Through the same process, it has been abolished in 1985. On the other hand, West Bengal and Punjab have abolished their second chambers pursuing the same procedure. The size of the Legislative Council shall vary with that of the Legislative Assembly, the members of the Council being not more than 1/3 of the membership of the Legislative Assembly, but not less than 40. This provision has been adopted so that upper house, the Council, may not get a predominance in the legislature. Article 171(1). The system of composition of the council as laid down in the constitution is not final. The final power of providing the composition of this chamber in the state legislature is given to the union parliament, article 171(2). But until parliament legislates on the matter, the composition shall be as given in the constitution, which is as follows. It will be a partly nominated and partly elected body, the election being an indirect one, and in accordance with the principle of proportional representation by the single transferable vote, the members being drawn from various sources. The council shall have a variegated composition. Broadly speaking, 5 1/6 of the total number of the members of the council shall be indirectly elected, and 1/6 will be nominated by the governor. Thus 1/3 of the total number of members of the council shall be elected by electorates consisting of members of local bodies such as municipalities, district boards. 1/12 shall be elected by electorates consisting of graduates of 3 years standing residing in that state. 1/12 shall be elected by electorates consisting of persons engaged for at least 3 years in teaching in educational institutions within the state, not lower in standard than secondary schools. 1/3 shall be elected to members of legislative assembly from amongst persons who are not members of the assembly. The remainder shall be nominated by the governors from the persons having knowledge or practical experience in respect of such matters as literature, science, art, cooperative movement, and social service. The courts cannot question the bona fides or propriety of the governor's nomination in any case. The legislative assembly of each state shall be composed of members chosen by direct election on the basis of adult suffrage from traditional constituencies. The number of members of the assembly shall be not more than 500 nor less than 60. The assembly in Mizoram and Goa shall have only 40 members each. There shall be a proportionately equal representation according to population in respect of each territorial constituency within a state. There will be a readjustment by Parliament by law upon the completion of each census. Article 170. As stated already, the governor has the power to nominate one member of the Anglo-Indian community as he deems fit, if he is of the opinion that they are not adequately represented in the assembly. Article 333. Such reservation will cease on the expiration of 50 years from the commencement of the Constitution. Article 334. The duration of legislative assembly is 5 years, but it may be dissolved sooner than 5 years by the governor. The term of 5 years may be extended in case of proclamation of emergency by the President. In such a case, the Union Parliament shall have the power to extend the life of the Legislative Assembly up to a period not exceeding 6 months after the proclamation ceases to have effect, subject to the condition that such extension shall not exceed 1 year at a time. Article 172(1). The Legislative Council shall not be subject to dissolution, but 1/3 of its members shall retire on expiry of every second year. Once Article 172 of 2. It will thus be permanent body like the Council of States, only a fraction of its member being changed every third year. A legislative assembly shall have its speaker and deputy speaker, and the legislative council shall have its chairman and deputy chairman, and the provisions relating to them are analogous to those relating to the corresponding officers of the Union Parliament. A person shall not be qualified to be chosen to fill a seat of the legislature of a state unless is a citizen of India, is in the case of the seat in the legislative assembly not less than 25 years of age, and in the case of seat in the legislative council not less than 35 years of age, and processes such as qualification as may be prescribed in that behalf by or under any law made by Parliament. Article 173. Thus, the Representation of the People's Act has provided that a person shall not be elected either to the Legislative Assembly or the Council unless he is himself an elector for any Legislative Assembly constituency in that state. The disqualification for membership of state legislature as laid down in Article 191 of Constitution are analogous to the disqualification laid down in Article 102 relating to membership membership of the either house of parliament. Thus a person shall be disqualified for being chosen as for being a member of the legislative assembly or legislative council of a state if he holds any office of profit under the government of India or the government of any state or other than that of a minister for the Indian Union or for a state or an office declared by a law of the state not to disqualify its holder. Many states have passed such laws declaring certain offices to be offices the holding of which will not disqualify its holder for being a member of the legislature of that state. Is of unsound mind as declared by the competent court, is an undischarged insolvent, is not a citizen of India or has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of a foreign state or is under any acknowledgement of allegiance or adherence to a foreign state, is so disqualified by or under any law made by parliament. In other words, the law of parliament may disqualify a person for membership even of a state legislature on such grounds as may be laid down in such law. Thus the Representation of the People's Act 1951 has laid down some grounds of disqualification, as for example conviction by a court having been found guilty of a corrupt or illegal practice in relation to election, being or director or managing agent of the corporation of which government has financial interest under conditions laid down in that act. Article 192 lays down that if any question arises as to whether a member of a house of the legislature of a state has become subject to any of the disqualifications mentioned above, the question shall be referred to the governor of that state for decision, who will act according to the opinion of the election commission. His decision shall be final and not liable to be questioned in any court of law. The legislative procedure in a state legislature having two chambers is broadly similar to that in parliament, save the differences on certain points to be explained presently. As regards money bills, the proposition is the same. The Legislative Council shall have no power save to make recommendation to the Assembly for amendments or to withhold the bill or for a period of 14 days from the date of receipt of the bill. In any case, the will of the Assembly shall prevail, and the Assembly is not bound to accept any such recommendation. This is all about today's part of state legislature in the series of our Constitution. Thanks, regards.